Hey everyone, and welcome back to another innovative investment idea. My name is Dave, and in today's video, we'll be taking a look at the Walmart and Microsoft cooperative bid to acquire TikTok, one of the world's leading social media platforms, and what the move could potentially mean for both companies from an investment perspective if and when the acquisition goes through. Just a friendly reminder to hit the like button at the end if you enjoyed the video, but also the subscribe button if you're new, as it really helps support the channel as we continue to push for that elusive 1000 subscriber. So with all that said, let's dive right in. If for some reason you have no idea what TikTok is, it is an app used to create short music, dance and comedy videos of somewhere between 3 to 15 seconds with the option to also stitch together multiple clips for a grand total of 60 seconds. The platform is popular amongst millennials and especially Gen Z in comparison to other social media platforms which appeal to a wider audience generally speaking. To provide additional context, ByteDance, the company which developed TikTok, originally released an app under the name Douyin into the Chinese market in late 2016 to the tune of 100 million users and more than 1 billion videos viewed every day during the first year alone. In an attempt to capture the global audience and capitalize on its success, in 2017, the company then released an international version of Douyin under the name TikTok, and throughout both 2018 and 2019 became the most downloaded app on Apple's App Store, leaving Facebook, YouTube and Instagram in its wake. In fact, many media outlets have cited TikTok as the 7th most downloaded mobile app of the decade between 2010 and 2019, a remarkable feat considering it has only been available for the final 3 or so years of that time span. Now, why is all this relevant, you might ask? So on August the 7th, 2020, President Trump issued an executive order to ban the social media platform from operating within the US on the grounds of protecting the data privacy of American citizens. While controversial, the order remains consistent with the administration's long-standing political battle with the world's second largest economy, which started in 2018 as a trade war of tariffs on imports, but eventually did culminate in the outright ban of Huawei phones and 5G infrastructure as recently as May of 2019. The move can be viewed as a preemptive strike against the CCP, who a few years earlier on June 27, 2017, enacted a national intelligence law essentially binding corporations operating within China to the government itself. To briefly explain the spirit of the law, Chinese and in some cases foreign citizens and organizations operating inside China could be forced to provide access, cooperation or support for Beijing's intelligence gathering activities. Obviously, the amount of data which social media apps in general collect about its users is tremendous, not just TikTok specifically, as they are able to access a phone's GPS location, the messages sent and received, a user's search history and so on, and clearly this was considered a matter of national security in the eyes of the US administration. In response to the ban, ByteDance launched a counter lawsuit on August 24th, challenging the US government's accusations that it is sharing data with the Chinese government, and as part of the filing, revealed that TikTok's current active worldwide users are now just shy of 700 million, with more than 100 million of those living within the US. The growth has been staggering to say the least, with the amount having increased 8-fold since January 2018. Notwithstanding the outcome of the counter lawsuit, the original executive order set a hard deadline of September 15th for TikTok to find an American buyer or cease and desist all operations within the US entirely. While there is no doubt a rich tapestry of motives at play here, at least 2 clear goals have come to light with regards to this decision. Firstly, a percentage of the proceeds from the sale must be sent directly to the coffers of the US Treasury Department. And secondly, all of the past and future user data must be securely transferred to an area outside of the CCP's jurisdiction. In a turn of events which will surely complicate matters further, China's Ministry of Commerce revealed late on Friday, August 28th, that the CCP had expanded its list of technologies subject to export controls to include new rules relating to artificial intelligence and algorithms. The update was surprising to say the least, as the list had not been changed in over a decade, since 2008 in fact, but was surely a power move in retaliation to Trump's executive order. While the content and data about a user is extremely valuable, the actual secret source to any social media platform, whether it be TikTok, Facebook or YouTube, is the underlying machine learning and algorithm which can determine what content is relevant to which users and can recommend similar or related content on the fly. That is to say, most of TikTok's intrinsic value moving forward is likely to reside in the millions of lines of code which keep the platform running and less on the existing data already in its database from a purely entrepreneurial perspective. Of course, national security experts will disagree with the previous statement. It is difficult to know the exact repercussions of this change from the Ministry of Commerce and how it might affect a potential sale, but time will ultimately tell. However, assuming the CCP does not prove to be an insurmountable hurdle on the way to a potential sale, the deal itself is estimated to be worth somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 billion US dollars and will also include TikTok's Canadian, Australian, and New Zealand operations. The scale of the transaction and the particular commodity at stake means that only a select number of companies with the resources are potential suitors, but so far, Walmart in conjunction with Microsoft have risen to the top as the likely victors in the bidding. In fact, Daniel Ives, Managing Director and Technology Analyst at Wedbush Securities, has given the coalition's bid an 85 to 90% chance of going through. Microsoft should be able to handle the data security and provide technological expertise, while Walmart stands to benefit from the platform's reach to expand its sales. I'll discuss the benefits for both these parties in more detail shortly. Oracle is the other name said to be in serious contention as a potential suitor as a solo act, but that partnership seems less than ideal given their expertise in mostly cloud computing and databases, as they clearly lack the know-how to capitalize on the marketing and e-commerce side of TikTok. It is undeniable that co-founder Larry Ellison has tremendous political ties to Trump as a known benefactor throughout the 2016 presidential campaign, but that alone might not be enough to move the needle given what's at stake. In fact, according to the following article by the New York Times, Microsoft President Brad Smith has already successfully engaged in an influence campaign on behalf of Microsoft in an effort to win over politicians and lawmakers in Washington and to greenlight their bid for TikTok if/when that comes to pass, putting them on potentially even footing as Oracle in terms of political sway. The irony here is that Microsoft nowadays seemingly has the ability to influence and win over the very government that was so hell-bent on pinning antitrust lawsuits against it throughout its formative years only a few decades ago. As a matter of fact, let's quickly go through each of the usual suspects to ascertain why they are unlikely to acquire TikTok or even be interested in bidding to begin with, and why Walmart and Microsoft should almost certainly be considered the favorites. So starting with the most obvious candidate, Mark Zuckerberg and company, owners of the world's already most popular social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, with a combined nearly 3 billion monthly active users. The company has the technological expertise and infrastructure in place to leverage both digital advertising and e-commerce, but unfortunately are also under extreme scrutiny for antitrust. Adding TikTok to their portfolio would almost certainly draw more unwanted attention and give politicians extra leverage in punishing the tech giant's dominance and more ammo to push for an eventual breakup of its monopoly. So it's probably safe to say they are out of the picture. In fact, along the same lines, it's probably prudent to also rule out Amazon and Google from the bidding as well, as they are both increasingly coming into the antitrust spotlight alongside Facebook. Since the DOJ is bearing down on its alleged anti-competitive practices over the years, accusing the tech giant of ranking its search results to favor its own products, and now even its home state of California is opening its own investigation, wading into the middle of an American-Chinese political war zone would probably be ill-advised. Google CEO Sundar Pichai has in fact already gone on record to publicly declare that Google is not actively pursuing TikTok. Of course, it remains to be seen whether this could all just be rhetoric and a technique to throw the media and competitors off the trail, but there does appear to be too much tension for this to be the eventual outcome. With Trump leading the charge on the ban of TikTok, and the well-documented unresolved beef between he and Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, ranging on a variety of topics such as the integrity of the Washington Post, the lack of taxes being paid by Amazon, and the exploitation of the USPS to deliver packages to its customers, it would be extremely surprising for the US administration to sign off on a deal that would allow Amazon to expand even further and become a significant player in the social media scene in addition to its existing businesses. Apple could be viewed as another potential candidate to acquire the social media platform, given its technological prowess, and with over $200 billion of cash on hand, it clearly has the resources. But the match doesn't appear to be optimal, as social media platforms generally operate across multiple devices and platforms, and unless the company decides to deprecate Android support for instance, which would essentially cripple TikTok's growth and reach potential, The application simply does not complement or leverage any of Apple's traditional services or offerings. So Apple is probably not a great fit either. While companies like Twitter and perhaps Snapchat would make great homes for TikTok with similar short-form social interactions, their market caps are very similar to TikTok and neither have much firepower in the way of cash, and therefore it would be extremely unlikely they could make a serious play at acquiring the app. So really, given the state of the game, it really exemplifies why Microsoft is the only real threat to acquire TikTok from a technology viewpoint, with Walmart a worthy running mate to handle the commercial aspects of the platform. Once again, assuming the CCP does not prevent or interfere with the potential deal. Okay, so let's get into the weeds a little. Why should Microsoft want to acquire TikTok? The first credible argument is that Microsoft has already pivoted away from being heavily dependent upon the Windows operating system as its primary revenue driver and a simple purveyor of enterprise software such as Office and Teams, and has actually built a well-diversified business portfolio under the leadership of Satya Nadella, including, amongst other things, LinkedIn, a social network for professionals, its Azure cloud platform, second only to Amazon's AWS, Skype, Xbox Gaming, and it has even established itself as a player in the hardware market with its Surface line of products. TikTok would not only serve to bolster its diversified offerings, but also allow it to legitimately compete against Silicon Valley rivals Facebook and Google in a very serious way. The second reason is the growth potential for TikTok, which could be enormous if handled correctly, as the app itself is only 3 years old and, as we've previously seen, is far from reaching user saturation as it is still undergoing massive user growth. While $30 billion might seem like a lot for an acquisition, keep in mind the following. Google's acquisition of YouTube in 2006 cost a then whopping sum of $1.65 billion, which has now become a cash cow and generated over $15 billion alone in the year 2019. Another example is Facebook's acquisition of Instagram in 2012 for a cool billion in what many thought was an overpay for an image sharing app, but that app generated a reported $20 billion in 2019 in ad revenue. It's impossible to predict what kind of revenue growth could be possible with TikTok, but perhaps a fair comparison is Microsoft snapping up LinkedIn for $26 billion back in 2016. While Microsoft has not seen the kind of returns either Facebook or Google have had with their respective acquisitions, as we can see from Statista, LinkedIn has been a fast-growing revenue generator for Microsoft in its own right, growing from just over $2 billion in 2017 to just under $7 billion last year in 2019. It's probably safe to say that $30 billion would be a fair investment when taking the longer view and amortizing its value over a lifetime. If you've watched any of the channel's previous videos, you would be aware that I've long advocated that data is the most valuable commodity in today's corporate landscape. With this acquisition, Microsoft immediately gains the ability to augment its enormous existing cache of corporate user data with that of TikTok, a source of pure consumer data, which would immediately catapult Microsoft into the same stratosphere as its peers in building a very accurate and complete user profile across society. The data will essentially give Microsoft a direct line to millions of millennials as well, paving the way to influence an entirely new generation of potential customers to purchase its products in the years to come. While there are probably a plethora of other valid reasons, the final reason that we'll discuss in this video anyway is that TikTok's machine learning algorithm could potentially help unlock Microsoft's previous attempts at developing a viable artificial intelligence to compete with its peers Google, Apple, and Amazon. Its search engine Bing and virtual assistant Cortana have all flopped comparatively speaking, but by studying the secret source of the highly successful TikTok algo, could help its engineers to understand Microsoft's own shortcomings and lead to the development of a more viable product. The last point here is slightly speculative, but in my opinion, is something worth mentioning. Okay, so the other half of the equation is to examine why Walmart would want to acquire TikTok. The main benefit is the platform's untapped ability for product placement, but it could also provide users a direct means to browse and purchase items they see advertised or incorporated into various videos they watch. In fact, ByteDance already has implemented these exact features within Douyin, whereby users are able to click product ads adjacently placed beside or at the bottom of each video, and are then directed to a feed consisting of other videos containing ads with similar or related products. By collecting data on users' interests, tastes, and spending habits, Walmart could very well begin targeted ad campaigns to sell even more products and augment its already impressive $500 billion plus in sales revenue. Walmart would simply just need to replicate the model Douyin has already proven works or even incorporate shades of Instagram as another attack vector. The second reason is Walmart's desire to expand into e-commerce, embodied by its impending launch of Walmart Plus. For years, Walmart has watched Amazon flourish and dominate as an online sales juggernaut, and while Walmart has been doing just fine in the brick and mortar space, there's no other way to put it than it has missed out on millions, if not billions of dollars of potential revenue from the online segment. With a high-profile acquisition such as TikTok, it would immediately give itself the ammo to at least compete and pry away market share from the likes of Amazon and start to reinvent itself as a forward-looking company that is prepared for future generations of shoppers who may or may not ever set foot in one of its physical stores. The third and final reason is simply ad revenue. Just as YouTube and Instagram are churning over billions and billions of dollars in digital advertising as previously discussed, Walmart could stand to gain a tremendous amount of dollars within the fast-growing segment of digital advertising and could see it accelerate its growth and increase its already hefty ROI to shareholders. It could also be an opportunity for Walmart to further diversify its investment streams, which is always a solid business strategy. So in closing, what would the acquisition of TikTok ultimately mean for either Walmart or Microsoft investors? The answer is simply that both would benefit a great deal, and there appears to be very little downside, if at all. There is obviously some risk that integrating TikTok into Microsoft infrastructure is not technically feasible, although Walmart's products won't end up selling very well on that platform for whatever reason, and of course there is still the looming presence of the CCP, which could prove to be problematic, and even the US administration could play a role before and after the deal. But for all the reasons discussed, investors or potential investors should not be surprised to see a sudden and positive market reaction upon news that a deal has been reached. Even now, prior to any sort of acquisition, both stocks already hold tremendous value as a combination of long-term bets and underrated dividend plays, and TikTok falling into their laps would only serve as icing on the cake. If you're already a holder of either or both of these stocks, you probably don't need reminding that they are quality and safe prospects in any portfolio, but if you're on the sidelines or contemplating an entry, I think now is a great time to open a position in anticipation of what looks to be a sure thing, and you'll thank yourself for the years and decades to come, with or without a TikTok deal even materializing. That about wraps it up for this video. What are your thoughts on the acquisition of TikTok, and will you be a buyer or seller of Microsoft or Walmart in the near future? Post them down below in addition to any other questions or comments. Also, don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and again, please consider subscribing to really support the channel if you haven't done so. Before I go, click on the top video here to take a look at a breakdown of the Teladoc and Livongo merger in what would be the largest e-health company in the world, or alternatively, down here for a look at Lemonade, a company using artificial intelligence to disrupt the age-old insurance industry. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.